Thanks everybody for joining in today. We're really excited to talk about this new mobile app. Um, there's a lot to cover, and so as a part of this, I want to start just by saying we have a very diverse group of people who are joining here, and we want to make sure that everybody gets something out of this. So whether you are a single person sign shop or managing all of the wayfinding for an entire hospital network, we want to make sure that there's something here for you. To that end, we're going to be mostly talking about the new features that are different from our legacy app, and we're going to keep it at a pretty high level. We're not going to do deep dives into how exactly these features work. For that, we've got a lot of resources available that we'd be happy to follow up with and share, those individual instructions for you. So let's talk about what is staying the same with this new app. Hopefully, everything you liked about the legacy version. There are some things that have moved, but we actually haven't removed anything. All the features that you use on a regular basis are still there. As you get familiar with this new app, it's important to note also that that legacy version is not going away yet. If you are in the middle of a project and don't want to make the switch, if you just don't like new technology, that's totally fair. We're going to be leaving that legacy version of the app up for a while so that people can get used to it, try out the new one before eventually we will sunset it. You'll have lots of warning though. So what is new? We've got this list of features that we're going to be going through today in a little bit more detail, starting with kind of the most important. But before we get to that, let's talk about why this app exists. So we have basically made this new from the ground up. The main reason for that is a lot of behind the scenes stuff that our users are not really going to care about, but the short version is it makes it easier for us to update and roll out new features for you. There are also things that we are doing in SignAgent and looking to develop that are, we couldn't have conceived of more than 5 years ago when we first made the original mobile app. And so this blank slate lets us really open things up for future development for you. So the way that this is going to work today is I am going to be showing off a cool new thing or a new feature, and hopefully you're excited about it. You think to yourself, that's really great. But, there might be ways that that could work better for me, or maybe that doesn't quite work with how I use the app. And the good news is we're already working on improvements, but we want to hear that feedback from you. Um, as I said, there's a lot of different people using this in a lot of different ways, and we want to make sure that it's a tool that works for everybody. And so this is just generation one. We are already working on new deployments, new features that are going to be coming out quite soon. And so there's going to be a lot of tweaking that goes on with this, but it's important that we hear from you about this. So we're going to try and collect as much feedback from as many different people as possible. Sometimes that is going to be feedback that is conflicting. One person wants one thing, someone else wants another. We need to find ways that we can make this work for everybody. And so we have heard you in what we've developed here today, but we also want to keep hearing from you. As James mentioned, there's going to be a survey at the end. One of the questions on it is if you've already been using the app, do you have any feedback? Are there any problems that you're encountering that we should know about? As you continue to use it, the best way to give us, make your voice heard is just to reach out through email to support@signagent.com. And we are always looking to hear from you on this. Development takes a long time, but right now it's important to know that we're actively working and we want to make this better for what you do. So that's enough preamble. Let's get into the actual features. First and most important, it's been a long time coming. This version of the app is available on Android. This has been requested for a long time, and this is hopefully going to be a tool that makes this a lot more available. Whether that means having more people from your team able to use the app, whether that means that it is easier to collaborate with other vendors, or if it just means that you're on site and your iPad ran out of battery and you need to switch back to your Android phone for a backup, we want to have that available for everybody. The actual features itself, though, we have made some changes. The first of these is we have rewritten the way that the syncing engine works in the background. Basically, we are trying to make it faster, more efficient, and easier for you. To that end, within the app, on every page that you go to, there is going to be a sync button that is going to say, basically touching this allows you to sync down data. It's going to have an icon that is showing if you're currently syncing data, and it has a timestamp to say the last time that all that information came across. And so hopefully this is going to remove some of the issues that people have had where they finish a long day of work, put down their device, and just forget to sync everything that they just captured back up to the cloud. We want to make that easy for you. There's also some additional ways that we can sync. So if I open this up here, if we go to the top left corner, there's going to be a menu button that has a sync settings page. And what this does is a couple of things. First is this is where we find thin client mode. Those of you who've been using the app for a while should be familiar with this. It basically is a lighter download for when you're syncing with SignAgent. It doesn't include all of the information that you would need on site. And so if you have access to Wi-Fi or data when you're actually working, you can turn this on so that you don't have to download as much initially and you get a little bit of it as trickling in as you need. If, however, you are not going to have access to the internet, this is important to have off so that our sync has all the data that we need beforehand before we ever go out on site, and it'll take longer, but it'll be complete. The actual toggles above here, though, are the organizations that a user is connected to. So with this demo information here, they are connected to 3 different organizations, and we can now toggle individually whether that organization is going to sync its data down to this device. Now, initially or very shortly, all of this is going to be off by default. The reason for that is we've got a lot of people who are connected to a lot of signs, and we don't want your first download to suddenly try and sync over 100,000 photos to your phone. No one's going to be happy with that. And so one of the things that we have done is we're going to have these all off, and you are only going to sync the ones that you want. Now, let's say that we've wrapped a project. This is where we are going to come and we're going to turn that particular toggle back off. We no longer need this information. And that's going to do 2 things. It's going to give us a little warning because it will remove all of the information associated with that organization from your device. So we want to make sure that everything is synced before we turn off an organization, because anything that we haven't uploaded to the cloud is going to disappear from here, which is great. It keeps your device a little bit less encumbered by information. It removes old photos. It basically means you don't have to look at all of the stuff that you are no longer working on. And in addition, any changes that get made here don't come back down to the device. So turning this off is going to resync all of the ones that we currently have so that we have a fresh, up-to-date version of what's available. Now, you're going to see that this looks a little bit different. There are some brand new colors here on the home page, and that's the next thing that we're going to be talking about. So, I guess I did miss a particular thing there, which is that those syncing tools are currently only organization level. So if you wanted to turn off specific projects, we're not there yet. But again, this is generation 1 of this app. It's something that we're already looking into. So it's going to only get more flexible from here. The other big news here is that we now work with installation projects. So if you are looking, the design project is probably what most people are familiar with, where we have those in orange and we have a specific state that somebody is invited to. The build projects are part of a different workflow that is available to those who are using on the build and manage licensing, where it is not about the number of individuals that you have working in the system, it's about the number of signs that you're working on. This is typically for larger organizations where you're going to need maybe like 20 installers on site for a week, but then they don't need access afterwards. This is a whole different workflow. There's new tools around it, but the good news is if you are used to the legacy app, the actual difference between what it's like to install using this install project or a design project with just an install state is exactly the same. All the same features are currently available, and there's not really any functional difference for you. Where things change is how we get to this point, as well as where signs go afterwards. So I'm going to dive into this a little bit. It's not directly in the mobile app, but it's important to know for how we set things up. And so let's start with inviting someone from a standard design project here. So I'm going to open this up. We're going to select the state where the signs are that we're ready to install. We're going to edit that state, and we're going to turn it from being a design state into a review state, which now opens up all these different options where we can say, yes, the signs are all reviewed, installed, rejected as our different options. And we have this permissions bar where we can add the email of any user that we want to have access to these, it looks like 57 signs. So we should be fairly familiar with that process. And we're going to do the same thing, but through a different workflow if we're working with the install build. So this is the build Kanban. This is something that we launched about a year ago. Since then, we've revamped how it's priced and some of the tools around it. If you are using it, you're probably familiar with this. And if you're not familiar with this, that's okay. Reach out to our sales team and we'd be happy to talk to you more about it. For just the quick overview, I'm going to move a bunch of signs over so that they are available for our install team one. Similar to states in a design project, this is what is going to let us say that particular people that are involved in this column here are only going to see the signs that are in this column. They are not going to see any of the signs that are in install team two's column of information, and so we can separate things however we need. So very similarly, we're just going to go to the column settings, and a lot of the same options exist here as well. We have the who has been invited to those columns. We have the standard 3 options that they will be given for every sign that is in this. And we have the permissions bar so that we can add additional people. So again, all very similar, just a stripped down, more Fabricator focused view of things. The other change that we're going to see is where signs go after we're done on the mobile app. So let's say that we have gone out, we've done that install, we've checked off all our signs, we've photographed it, everything's great there. We now have a completed install. This is where we are going to have at the end of these projects, the ability to move signs into what's called a manage project. So if I have this sign, you can see it says that signs automatically moved to this manage project. So there we go. I drop it in, 2 signs get moved out of this project and they're completed. This is a little bit different, and this is, again, for enterprise organizations who are managing signs long-term. They have one managed project, and in it exists all of the signs that we've moved. For the really quick overview, because this isn't as mobile focused, it comes with great features like the ability to say what is installed on the wall right now. Here's that version. We also have version 2, where we've actually updated the template or the messaging, or we've made changes. And at the end of the installation, this now becomes the installed version that's on the wall. And so this is a great tool for anybody who is either managing signs long-term and wants to use the mobile app, or if you are a designer or working in any way and you want to be a part of our referral program and hand over to your client the best possible set of data at the end of their project. We can get into a lot of detail on that. If you do have questions, again, we'll definitely handle those outside of the webinar where we can talk to you pretty in-depth about all the licensing and structure of those kind of tools. But getting back to the features of this mobile app. So there are a lot of additional ways that we have allowed you to customize both what data comes in and also how that data is displayed and treated. As I think I just highlighted with the build and the manage and the design workflows, there are a lot of people using SignAgent, and they have different needs about how we want things to appear where in the mobile app. So it used to be that we just had thin client mode. We now have a suite of advanced settings, and they are going to differ between when you're surveying, when you're installing, or when you're reviewing signs. You're going to want different ones switched on or off. So let's just go through these to see kind of what that looks like. We're going to start with launch camera to open new signs. If you have this turned on, when you create a new sign, it's going to open up the camera automatically. This is the kind of behavior that was already on the old app and is great for all surveyors. When you want this turned off is specifically when you're capturing like non-sign information or if you are doing some programming on site rather than capturing photos. We also have uh, the use drawer for sign details. So this is something that tends to be more applicable for people who are doing installations. When we are in the app looking at all our information, we have the sign list, which shows us the sign ID, its review status, whether we've captured a photo of it, but we also have the map. If we have this turned off, this sign list is always going to be present. And so this is really useful for people who are doing like a really organized and regimented install where we have a specific order that we're rolling through things, or if you are managing an install and you want a good overview of all the signs on a location rather than having to click into them all. It's worth noting that if we turn this feature on, this information is still available. It's just that we would pull it out using this little button at the top so we can open and close it. All right, we also have the ability to toggle on and off, remembering the last type of sign. So if you've worked in the web version before, this is the default feature where when you create a new sign, it's going to be the same type as the last sign. That's not always something that we want on site though. So when I create this sign, by default, it is, in this case, our survey marker. And the reason that it's that survey marker is I've turned off that memory about what sign I created last. And I put survey marker at the top of my list. So whatever's at the top of my list, that's my default. It's going to go back there every time. This is typically a feature that gets asked for by people who are doing surveys, but need to do at least a little bit of categorization on site. So for example, if we have a large informational where we're taking measurements and we don't want to type in the measurements every time, we just have a sign type that has those measurements built in. We say that this is the large one, it's 10 by 10, or this is the smaller one, it's 5 by 5. You can select that information, but the next time that you create a sign, the system doesn't remember the last one, and we go and default back to survey marker. This is to make sure that we don't get caught up accidentally creating a bunch of one type of sign without meaning to. Okay, getting near the end of these settings here, we have display messages with artwork. So this is another tool that has been requested quite a bit. It's for people who don't use dynamic templates in all of their signage. So in this example, we can see that it says stairwell name. This is just a static image that we are using as kind of a reference. Like here is an overview of what these signs look like. It's not customized to this specific sign. And beforehand, if we had artwork in the mobile app, it would just overwrite our messaging to avoid having duplicate information. Turning on the option for display messages with artwork now gives us both so that we can see, oh, here's the overview, but also this specific sign actually says East Stair on it. So we now have the flexibility to also include information that may not show up super well in the artwork or really just have additional information displayed here. Okay, next up is the full resolution photos. This is something that works for some folks and not for others, and so we've turned it into an option for how it gets displayed. By having this off, you are going to get a thumbnail whenever you look at the photos of a sign that specifically you haven't taken. The reason that we want to do this is let's say that you're a surveyor on site and you care more about where a sign is placed and quickly having information syncing up and down about where those signs are. By going to a thumbnail display, it means that you have to download a lot less data than an HD photo, and you get to see that, oh yes, this sign is here, someone already took a picture of it. Just helps with that on-site collaboration as long as we are connected to the internet. For installers though, we want that HD sign. For reviewers, we want that, and so we have the option to download all that information ahead of time as part of our sync. It'll take longer, but you'll get the tools and the information that you need. Okay, so those are all the settings. Now, actually, let me go back up for a second here. One of the things that you might see is that's a lot of information and it requires you to know kind of what you're doing. So we have information about this in our knowledge base as part of our support articles, basically saying if you're doing this, here's what you probably want to turn on and off. If you're doing something else, here's probably how you want your settings. We're going to be working to make improvements to that in the future for how easy it is to toggle that, especially for people who are new to the app and may not know what any of this means. So let's move on to the actual editing of signs. All the same information is there. We've just made it easier. So one of the things that was fiendishly difficult in the old app was rotating and moving signs. The way this works now is that when you tap on a sign, you're going to get 4 pieces of information. You are going to get at the bottom the garbage can if you want to delete that sign, the info button if you want to open up all the fields and information about that sign, or the camera if you just want to take a snapshot of it. You're also going to get this circle up here, which is a much larger area to work with. And basically all you do is place your finger on it and you can spin it to essentially change the rotation of the sign, which is much easier than it was in the legacy version of this app. Now, in addition, if you tap and hold on the sign, that circle will turn into a square, and now we can move its placement. So if you are, if you missed where you actually meant to put it, you're a couple feet to the right of the door, that's totally fine. We can adjust that a little bit more easily. We also have the ability that once we tap on that little icon at the bottom, that info, we can actually delete photos that we've taken. This is something that wasn't available in the legacy app, and the photos are going to show up actually both under attachments and comments. Photos we count as comments so that they have a history of who took them, when they did them, but we also have a trash can underneath them so that if I open up what is a blurry and poorly taken photo, I have the ability to come in and delete it. Now, one thing about this is the person who took the photo is the one who has to delete it. We have that kind of as the balance between people who want to fully preserve the history of a sign and not lose information, and people who want to be able to essentially make a mistake and make up for it. So as long as you're the one who took the photo or left a comment, you have the ability to come in and delete it. Okay, so last thing I believe here is attachments. So the attachments are for documentation that we want about our signs. Previously, this was something that you had to upload to each sign if you wanted it to be available. But what we've done is we've used the comments tool, but we've used it at a sign type level. So in this case, I'm going to take the two-sided directional sign, and we want to add an installation guide to it. So within the desktop here, I am going to come and edit this sign type. Again, this is something that can only be done from a desktop. We want to do this ahead of time as prep work because we can't attach this from within the app itself. But now that I'm editing the sign type, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom and I'm going to leave a comment just like I would on any sign where I can attach this file that we want to be available. I'm going to hit comment. And this isn't just for the mobile app as well. If we are going to go and open up one of these 2D-1 signs, what we're going to see is that this file that we attached is now available from every one of these signs. So I scroll down to the bottom, there is now a sign type files here where that install guide is available. And I can click on that to download or open it, and I get whatever it was that I attached here. We can also have more than one attachment, and ideally it will be a PDF. They just work the best for this, but we can also handle image files as well. Now, how that looks on the mobile is very similar. We are going to open this up, and it's the same thing. I tap on one of these signs, and then because I want the info for it, I'm going to tap on that button at the bottom. And if I go to the attachment section, we can now see, as I was saying, photos that are the good ones we didn't delete of this sign, and an install guide that is available as a PDF here. So we've got the photo. We're going to click on the install guide as well, and it's going to download that and have that available for us as well so that we can access that from any sign if we need to reference it. We don't have to have a separate package of data or files available from the phone. It's all built into the app. Okay, so that's a lot of information and a lot of new things. More is definitely coming. And again, we want to hear your thoughts, opinions, and what it's like to use some of this as we go forward. But I'm going to turn it over to Dave now to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can ensure that you have success beyond the mobile app when you're out on site using it.
Great. Thanks, Alex. And a lot of the items that we're going to talk about, Alex already touched upon it. So in this case, if you're using the mobile app for surveying, preparation is key. You need to ensure that you've uploaded everything onto your desktop, set up mandates, and created a survey marker sign type that has the necessary fields for notes and measurements. And then from there, you can go to site and start working. But you have to make sure while you still have Wi-Fi, you pre-sync to download all the floor plans and updates before you arrive on site because you don't always know if there's Wi-Fi available. So while you're on site, that's a different story. Once you're there, you want to connect to the Wi-Fi if there's one possible. The other thing to keep in mind is that you're potentially working there the full day. You may want to bring chargers or battery backups because it does, take up a lot of battery power. So once you're there and you start working, you go to your floor plan. You want to work systematically to cover all areas. So you'll see the floor plan. You want to inspect all doors, rooms, intersections, stairwells to see if there are any signs there. If you're working with a partner, sometimes you may or may not be able to sync up data at the same time. So you want to set certain boundaries so you don't overlap or miss areas because you're working as a team. It's basically a scavenger hunt. You want to make sure you cover all areas and you don't miss anything. And in doing so, this is the time while you're performing a survey to identify opportunities, missing signs, or even take reference shots. So you can take notes wherever necessary, and you have a more thorough audit of your space and signs that exist or are missing. The one thing I always tell surveyors is to take extra photos. You can take as many photos as you like for reference, an up close one of the sign and one further back for reference to understand how it's installed and where it's installed. These are all good practices because you're only there maybe that one time and maybe it's a long distance. Having to go back is difficult and multiple photos can tell a long story. And speed is essential. So the quicker you can mark up where those signs are, take as many photos and notes as possible. You can do all of your cleanup later at your desktop because sometimes spending the time to select your sign types on site will just drag out the survey and you'll run out of time when a lot of that can be done easier and faster on your desktop. So those are just a few tips for surveying, and we can move on to installation as well. Again, much in the same way, you have to ensure that all the preparation is made ahead of time on the desktop, that all the signs are placed into their appropriate project, and you have the permissions and mandates set up. To make things a little bit easier for the installer, and this has to coincide with the manufacturer, the codes for each sign type would ideally be placed on each of the signs or printed on them. So this way, when they reference the sign in the mobile app, they can go into their box of signs and select it not just by the image that's available, but also by the sign code to match it up. Again, as Alex had mentioned, attaching installation instructions to the sign type will be helpful if there are any questions. It'll reduce questions from the installer on site when they have the information available to them, and it's available in the install app if you attach it to the sign type. Once you open up the sign map and you see, as Alex had shown, where all the signs are on a map and the list of signs, you can organize it either sequentially based on your position. So you could work through a hallway and start from one side and work your way down and knocking off each of the signs that are placed there. Or you can filter the signs by the type of signs you're installing. You may want to take care of all the peel and stick signs first, and then leave all the drill up signs for last. And you can isolate those in the app or through the desktop. Again, ensure that you hook up to the Wi-Fi if it's there, so this way your work and your progress gets synced up as you go along and it keeps your stakeholders informed. There's no work to be done afterwards because all that information is synced up to the cloud. And again, part of that process is not to forget to take photos. Once you've installed the sign, you mark it checked off that it's installed and take photos for reference. So these are just a few um, best practices, tips, hints. There are always more to come that we post in our library, and we will eventually share other types of instructions for best practices.
Great. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Alex and David, for going over all that. I know Larissa's been busy answering questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to turn things over to Larissa if you want to unmute. And I know there's still some remaining questions, and encourage you to, if you do have other questions that you haven't asked yet, feel free to enter those now. Larissa?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, James. As James mentioned, I'm Larissa. I work on the customer success team. We do have a couple of questions here that I will be asking Alex and David. Just the first one here is about the app specifically. I can answer this one really quickly before handing it off. There's a question about in the App Store. It looks like there are two apps now, SignAgent and SignAgent Mobile. So this is the legacy app and the new one. So our legacy app is just going to be titled SignAgent, and it has a gray logo saying Legacy. SignAgent Mobile is now the new version that you are to download, and you'll have access to all of these features that we went over in the webinar today. So I just wanted to make sure that we were clarifying that there are two in the App Store currently, but the newest one, I think we have on the screen here, SignAgent Mobile, that's the one that you want to have downloaded to access all of these features that we discussed. All right. So I'm going to jump into some of these questions. So one of our questions here is a copy of the photos taken with the app saved in the mobile phone gallery as well, or is it just going to be present in SignAgent?
It's a great question. So it is just present in SignAgent. We basically do that to avoid overburdening your phone with photos. The way to that this then lets us do is when you are, for example, I'm actually just going to have to jump around a little bit here, but when you are unsyncing your organization, so let's say that we are done with this invites organization and we want to do that selective sync. By clearing it off, we don't necessarily have access to the gallery. And so if it's all stored within SignAgent, it'll wipe that out. Now, if you're asking about that for the sake of adding notes and editing and various kinds of markup, that is a great question as well. And what you can do in that case is, do I have a good example? Take the photo through your regular phone camera app and add it as a comment to that individual sign. It's an extra step, but if you need to do that markup that isn't available, that is a way that you can have kind of the best of both worlds.
Awesome. Great. Okay, next question here. Is there a way to lock the placement of markers and signs in the mobile app? Example, sometimes on site random signs will get added or their placement moved due to larger fingers.
That is a good question as well. And so there is partially a way to do that. What we would have is, let me just find the right spot here. When we're talking about adding permissions to those signs, this is one of the benefits of going either specifically through the install app or through the build project, is that once signs get here, they are locked down. We can't change them. And so those are designed again with installation and fabrication in mind that, partway through install, we don't generally want to be changing the messaging or we don't want to be moving things. We got to work a little harder to do it through a design project. But the way to handle that is that if you give someone access only to the as a reviewer at a state level, so they're not part of the project, they're not part of the organization, we have just added them at that review state level, they don't have the ability to make changes to it. So they can't they can't actually rotate it. They can't change things. They just have this approve, reject, or review option. The final combination of this is if you are doing a survey, there isn't really a way to lock that down because we want you to be able to change the data. So there are a couple of ways that we can handle this, and it just depends on which tools you're using and how locked down you want it to be.
I'll just add one quick thing there, Matt. If you're actually doing the survey and you add a sign, um, the quick way to check it is if there's no photos and no comments, it's been added by accident. You might as well delete it. So that's just a quick reference as to, hey, did I create this on purpose or not? If there's nothing attached to it, then it must have been an accident.
Great. Thank you both. Next question is, if you are working on an exterior project like an outdoor trail, will the mobile app work if there is not Wi-Fi and you are trying to use the live map feature?
That's a good question, and unfortunately not. Similar to a lot of mapping applications, we need that live connection in order to pull that information in so that we don't basically download a whole map of the world to your phone. If that is a major issue for you, there are some workarounds. One of the ones that I've found works really quite well is instead of having the live map, is we use essentially screen grabs from Google Earth, which provides really high resolution exterior maps that you can then upload as a regular PDF and try and balance those two needs of not having Wi-Fi, but also having exterior plans.
Great. This is a question pertaining to both apps. I think that this is something that maybe we can clarify for, the next little bit while we transition to the new app. But is it possible to have both apps open at the same time, Legacy and the mobile app? Would there be any syncing issues with this?
Yeah. We generally don't want to be working in both at the same time. It is theoretically possible, but it opens up a whole lot of opportunity for human error. Because especially the syncing engines are different and perform at different rates, it means that we are much more likely to capture information twice, miss information, or just not have it be able to collaborate really well. The legacy app is still going to be available as, as a backup if it was ever needed. But this has gone through some pretty thorough testing. And I would suggest that if we are wrapping up a project with the legacy app, when we are done, that's when we shift over to the new one rather than doing a hybrid of having both open.
Great. Just trying to check on time here. Okay. So another question about the functionality of, sorry, I just lost my spot here. Here we go. It's about all of the projects that are showing up in the app. Is there a way to limit the amount of projects that are showing? So we're currently seeing that every project is showing up, even the ones that were previously archived. Is there a way to remove those older projects from the app?
So the way to do that is through that selective sync. Beyond that, if I pull this up and skip ahead a little bit, they are going to still show up. We still want the ability to move data back and forth because there are projects that get reactivated. This is going to be the way to do that. Ideally, they will, or I mean, they're not going to show up on the front page if, as I said, they are going to start as all disabled, and we only sync the ones that we are deliberately turning on. Now, as far as this list goes, that is going to, by default, show you everything to give you the most flexibility.
Great. On that note, kind of relating to the selective sync, will the selective sync be focused in on states ever? If you have multiple states can you make it so that you can only sync or see the state that you want? Is that something that
That's
will
a
be?
great question, one I don't have an answer to right now. Currently, it's not part of our roadmap. The thought is that it would be at a project level. However, that's the kind of thing that we would love to get feedback on. It's going to add significantly to permissions, and that'll slow down sync times. But if that's something that's really important to people, we want to hear about it and know about it so that we can start building towards that in the future.
Awesome. I have a couple more questions in here. A couple of them that I will be responding to individually, so you'll get an answer from me. I'm just gonna look at this newest one that just came in here. So this is a question specifically to the camera. So I'm not sure if this is something that we can chat about, but we'll see if there's an answer for it. But I hear that I noticed that using the native iPad camera has a larger field of view than using the camera in the SignAgent app. Has this been updated in the new version? The wider field of view is useful for when space can be restricted, i.e. small rooms and narrow corridors.
Gotcha. That's a great question. While it is something that we would love to address in the future, it's not something that we've updated, and may not be able to. If we want it to be able to, this app to work with a wide range of devices, what we've essentially done is set this in a way that we know will work for everybody, and that limits some of those like higher performance features like that really wide scope. But again, that's feedback that's really valuable for us to hear, and it's something that we can look into.